Hello, hello. Welcome back to wait. Welcome back to Tipsy Whiskey Shenanigans. And I completely forgot my dogs left outside. Oh no. Well, uh great start to live stream. I'll be right back in like 5 seconds. Sorry about that. That's an overstep or an overlook. Didn't think about that. Cheech, this is a live. Yep, I am live and completely forgot I accidentally left my dog outside to go pee while I was preparing for the live stream and just kicked it off live. And I heard him barking outside. I'm like, oh no, it's like almost 100 out there. I cannot leave him outside the whole time. So yeah, let's go. It's been a while, a really long time. Is it live or is it Tipsy Shenanigans? I mean, what's the difference, buddy? What is the difference? Nice to see you all. It's been a long time since I've gone live, so it's nice to kind of get back into doing things. I'm testing out some new stuff, new camera angles, things of that nature. So if you have any thoughts, opinions, let me know. I'm still kind of workshopping a lot of this stuff. Got some pretty insane back pain too, so that's fun. But yeah, today we are getting into a new brand for me, which is something that is super exciting to me because you don't see a lot of these in the United States, which is, I want to say, weird because I do see a reason why we don't need independent bottlers, but also we see a lot of independent bottlers in the European countries and whatnot. So I'm surprised we don't have so many because, again, chat, correct me if I'm wrong because I'm wrong all the time. But as far as I'm tracking, this is the only other this and Lost Lantern are the only two independent bottlers for the United States that I'm personally aware of. I am probably wrong, 100% probably wrong because unfortunately I don't have the time to kind of sit back and it's like you, man. I don't have the time to sit back and study and kind of get to know everything going on in the world of whiskey. Even though it is exciting and stuff, there's just so much on my plate. I have no time to deal with that. So I, get on the camera and talk about stuff. That being said, I did find this brand, Two Souls. I reached out to them via the interwebs and whatnot, and they sent me some whiskey. So I'm going to kind of review some of their whiskey. I haven't tried any of it yet. That being said, there is one they sent me that I'm so ridiculously into. Like, it just the description of the bottle, I am so into. First question in order to answer. What is your definition of an independent bottler? That's fair. That is 100% a fair statement. So to me, I mean, when you put it that way and you make me think about it, I guess like brands that are just sourcing is technically independent bottling. But what I want to say is, so is Doc Simpson's one, is Barrel. Yeah, so I would call those sourcers. People who source whiskey. That's not a good term. I'll have to come up with something better. But people who source whiskey, that's what I would consider them. Independent bottlers, I feel like they're really interesting because they don't try to pass off their whiskey as their brand. So for example, Doc Swenson's, they acknowledge that it's like, bottled in wherever they're out of, but it's sourced from Indiana. Same with Barrel. They do blending. They do very interesting stuff. They're a NDP, non-distilling producer. That being said, I think what kind of separates for example, independent bottlers like this and Lost Lantern is they don't try to hide it. So like all of these, I mean, they sent me cards so I can get really nerdy into it, but they sent all this with where it's from, like all the stats, like barrel char, entry proof, yield, barrel, where it came from. Like for example, they sent me a American single malt from Watershed, straight bourbon from Sutherland, never heard of them, bourbon from Watershed, and a rye from Finger Lakes. So, I mean, it's a little different because I feel like they don't try to pass their stuff off as their own whiskey. Like they're very much so like, hey, we go around, we find bottles we like, and we find, picks, barrels, whatever you want to call it. We find that stuff and we bottle that, and then we put it underneath our brand. But they don't try to hide where it's from or say like, oh, hey, this is Two Souls whiskey. It's more like, hey, this is a Two Souls bottling of this. Kind of like a pick almost. I would say it's almost closer to a pick than it is an NDP. But again, that's not something that's super, it's not something that's extremely well documented or extremely well planned out, or, like bourbon. There's a lot of rules to bourbon. That's something that it's kind of like, what do you think is a right answer in this case? Like, what do you think's the truth? Because I could go both ways, but me personally, I think what separates them is the fact that they are very upfront and forward about the bottles. And these are all single barrels, I believe. So I would say it's closer to a pick than an NDP. But yeah, so to get right into that though, that's what Two Souls does. They're a non-distilling producer. They are sourcers. They, technically they call themselves independent bottlers, which again, we do agree. Here, bear with me. Let me read that comment. Oh, hey, that doesn't all pull up everywhere. There are several Scottish independent bottlers that do not disclose their sources. Doc Swinson's may not have the sources on the bottle, but they disclose lot, including enough to know where it's from. That is also true. We'll just say like the whole independent bottler sourcing, basically NDP world is very gray. In this specific case, we're just going to say independent bottlers are people who bottle other people's single barrels and kind of give them credit, but they also are saying like, hey, this is what our brand does it. And I think this specific brand, so Two Souls, they're an independent bottler. They pick whiskey from all around the world, or just in the United States, as far as I'm tracking. I looked on their website. I only saw stuff from the United States, but they focus primarily on kind of craft stuff. And that's what I think and I know obviously independent bottler sourcing, super gray area. We're talking about legally. I think technically they're just considered an NDP. That being said, they seem to be where a lot of NDPs focus on sourcing, like Dickel, MGP, other, Kentucky bourbon, what is it? Like Bardstown juice, things of that nature. They don't focus on that. They focus on the craft aspect, which is something I appreciate because craft is everywhere. There are some fantastic craft stuff. The crappy thing when it comes to craft is sometimes craft can equal crap. Like there are a lot of craft distilleries out there that don't know what they're doing and they're just putting up really, really bad stuff or really young stuff. So this kind of cuts out the middleman. This is a company that goes around the US, finds barrel picks from craft distillers or small time distilleries that aren't necessarily craft, but like less well known. And they find a barrel pick that is really, really good. And then they bottle it under their own label. Yes, that is true. but they do also disclose where it's from. So you don't have to play that game like, is it good? Is it bad? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it good? Is it bad? When it comes to craft, which is a way more, we'll call it intense game to play with craft whiskey than it even is with Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky, there's still a little bit of that play. Like, that's just something that's inevitable with the whiskey, like, world as a whole. But I feel like craft whiskey, it's even worse. A lot to think about when they're definitely, yeah, such a gray area. Honestly, Sugar Kitty, I'm so glad you brought that up because that's not something I would have thought about. Like, I just thought going into this, I was like, yeah, they're an independent bottler because that's what they describe themselves as. And I did a little bit of research and that makes sense. But honestly, what's the difference? Maybe it's like a culture thing. Maybe it's a like an internal company culture, what they're focusing on. And like I said, that's what they seemingly be, or that's what they are seemingly doing. I can't words today. That's what they are seemingly doing at Two Souls, is they're focusing on like lesser known brands and more craft type stuff to be sourcing than your traditional typical like, hey, we source MGP and release it. Because you know me, I actually originally, when I started this whole whiskey YouTube, this whiskey game, I was a hater on MGP. I was a hater on sourcing. I was a hater on a lot of that type of stuff. But now I found I really, really enjoy a lot of MGP products and I love a lot of source stuff. So like Doc Swinson's, love that. Barrel, I really, really like them. Barrel went from being one of the shittiest brands, in my opinion, to one of the greatest brands. Like, I thought Barrel originally was an overhyped, overpriced garbage, but now they're one of my favorite go-to, like, $80 to $90 bourbons. They're not cheap, but man, oh man, I do like them. There's also in Scotland, Gordon and McPhaila Bernock in Springbank, Cadahead, and Edward. Some of the independent bottlers also distill. That's, I mean, yeah, kind of like, yeah, that's such a complicated topic. I think there's just a lot of different terminology. Yeah, I guess, yeah. So I would say these guys are more of this is an NDP that focuses on bringing craft or lesser known brands to the public at large, where a lot of people probably would never have seen any of these bottles. I'll be honest, I've tried zero things. So the only other person or company brand I've ever tried that does a lot of NDP work like this is Lost Lantern. They call themselves an independent bottler. They do a bunch of different picks of like lesser known companies, including ones in my local backyard, the Del Bach. They've done quite a few picks from them recently. But in this case, so we are going to be trying. So they sent me 4 different bottlings. It's the 4 ones on their website. I looked online and they're all around that $80 to $100 mark. So, I mean, with how the market is nowadays, especially with them being lesser known craft type distilleries, I think it's on par. I wish things were showing up at like that $50, $60 mark, but I think we're just a little bit past that and we need to accept that that's how prices are going to be. Given this is also me saying this before I've even tried anything, I just appreciate seeing bottles at like $60, $70 rather than 80, 90, almost 100 nowadays, because I'm just seeing way too many $80 to $90 bourbons that I have no idea what it is, and that is a hard pill to swallow before you've tried something from them. Peter White, cheers, nice to see y'all. It's been a while. I appreciate you guys coming on. I was honestly not gonna lie, I was kind of rethinking whether or not I should continue live streaming and whatnot, just because it's a lot of work sometimes, but I think this has solidified that I want to continue live streaming. Probably not this early in the day, but I want to continue it. Maybe not every single week, but that's something we're going to determine. So, okay, let's get into it. We got and the cool thing about this, little flight I'm going to do, which is 4 of their different bottlings, I have some ridiculous amount of notes and stats and statistics and all that jazz from these bottles. So that is actually pretty exciting. So, first one, New York Straight Rye. That is, let's see the proof point, 105 proof. Then we got a 4-year-old bourbon from Watershed Distillery, 123 proof. Then we got a California straight bourbon from Sutherland, which I've never even heard of them. And I live right next to California. So if they're good, I might be able to, make a trip there or something. It's a 6-year-old, 1 month, 9 days. That's very specific. And then 126 proof bourbon. And then this is the one I'm excited about. The last one I'll go over today is their American single malt whiskey. This is a American single malt from Watershed. Mash bill, 85% malt, 15% smoked malt. And then it's 114.8 proof, and it is finished in, let's see, heavy charred before finish in a fresh apple brandy barrel. Yeah, so it's a 5-year-old, or it was 5 years old, spent 5 years in charred, just a normal brand new American oak barrel, and then an additional year in fresh apple brandy barrels. So that I'm super excited about. Finished malt whiskey with a little bit of smoke. Love that. Like, there's some insane stats on this, and these are all online too. All of the ones, like, they have all their stats on their website, which link down there below in the description of this video. What I think we can all agree on all across the world: more transparency. Yes. Like, we don't need, so for single barrels, this information is cool for like those nerdy people like us and whatnot, but that's cool. I would just love to get a blended, like, I would love for them to disclose, maybe not like percentages and whatnot, because honestly, what's the point of keeping that information to yourself? Each barrel is going to be different. So, like, just because I say, like, oh, hey, I blended a 10-year-old MGP with a 6-year-old craft whiskey from, let's call it Texas, 6-year-old Texas whiskey, which is pretty old for Texas, we'll drop that down to 4. So if I'm like, hey, I blended 10-year-old MGP bourbon, same exact mash bill, with a 4-year-old Balcones bourbon, and I made the most incredible whiskey ever. Me having told you that, you still probably couldn't take a 10-year-old bourbon from MGP and a 4-year-old bourbon from Balcones and blend them together to achieve the same exact flavor profile. Like, it's difficult. Even with the same distillery, barrel to barrel is going to have variance, and it's hard to blend a batch that's exactly like a previous batch. It's hard. Like, that's a huge difficulty. So, like, I understand the whole concept of, like, maybe keeping your IP to yourself in a way, but also, like, I don't know. I don't see a need for it in our case. Yeah, Compass Box is transparent right down to percentages. Yeah, that's awesome. I will always applaud people who are very transparent with their sourcing. I like that stuff. There's a few brands out there that source that aren't very upcoming or forward with their information, and I do not appreciate that, but there are some that are also really fantastic about it. So I'm going to kind of rock this one going proof and age up. So I'm going to do the American single malt last, because that one gives me a hard on. I'll do the California straight bourbon whiskey before that one. Do the Ohio, and then I'm going to try this New York rye first. So let me pour this SOB, and then, yeah, so outside of like me, Peter, and Sugar Kitty, What is your thoughts on independent bottler? I mean, you guys can also share your thoughts because I kind of got a general gist of it. But what's your thoughts on the whole independent bottler, sourcer, NDP type thing, and like what would you like to see? Obviously, like I said, this company is very forward with where they are sourcing their products from. But like, what do you like to see, and are you pro or are you against the whole sourcing argument or the whole sourcing industry? Because an argument can be made for either side of it. Like, I don't know. It's hard to disagree or argue one way or the other. There is Broclade in the Scotland world with QR code on the bottle and technical specs for every aspects of sometimes 5 to 10 barrels that went into. That's awesome. That takes a mad infrastructure on the back end. For single malts, IBs are much better by my opinion. And Peter, by that, do you mean like Scotch or do you mean like American? Okay, so first one I want to get into is going to be, let's see, I'm just going to read this. So it's a 6-year-old rye, straight rye whiskey, mash bill, 80% rye, 20% malted barley. Barrel is Finger Lakes. So I'm sure there's a distillery out there called the Finger Lakes. I would assume that's like this is a New York straight rye whiskey. So yeah, New York Finger Lakes craft distillery probably. Barrel number char is 4. Entry proof was 100. And they yielded 196 bottles. Fill date December 2015. Bottled November 2022. So that's almost 7 years old. Borderline 7 years old, and it's 105.3 proof. Ooh, this is a spicy gal too. I am for all having to put mash bill and where it came from is sourced. I'm pro that. I like that kind of stuff though. I kind of wish more distilleries, whether you're sourcing it or not, like disclosed the mash bills. Like I like knowing that kind of stuff about them. Yeah. Yeah, so this is kind of like a what was that? Like Old Forester rye mash bill, that higher malted barley than corn aspect, because there's no corn in this, and this is all spice. This is a spicy gal. Spice, not aggressive on the nose. For the first whiskey of the day, I'm surprised. I mean, it is only 105 proof, but it's still 105 proof for the first whiskey of the day, you know? There are a few of them available. That's true. Yeah, I feel like we need more companies like MGP because there's so many NDPs out there, but there's so little people actually distilling that stuff. So you see this huge issue with like all of the NDP source whiskey is like basically the same exact stuff. Yeah, Joey. The more you know, the better. You can never go wrong with having more information, in my opinion. Yeah, this is spicy. It's peppery. There's a nice like clove pepperiness. There's also this like earthiness in there as well. It's very, very much so on like that spicy, savory side. There's nothing like candied about this at all. I mean, there's like a little bit of a sweet vanilla in there, but not too much more than that. Ooh, yeah, that is peppery, earthy, almost chocolatey. There's a little bit of like a bitter baking chocolate and then pepper. Oh, I do like that. I do like that. That is a drink surprisingly easy. So for how like explosive and like peppery the nose smells like, it's super approachable on the palate. I mean, for me at least, I am a sucker for those darker flavors, and that is like spice and chocolate, and like it is a little on the bitter side though. The infrastructure to disclose is actually not that much. A single everyday computer system that they have to have anyway is they need. Almost all of them have a website interface. Yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about that whole world, but yeah, I mean, might not be too difficult. Yeah, I'm pro the whole NDP route, especially for blending. When people are just releasing single barrels, I like to see it like this, where it's like, hey, we're releasing this underneath our brand, but here's who actually made the whiskey before we purchased it from them. I like to see it like that. When it's just a single barrel, like, hey, we're just releasing a single barrel, it seems lazy to me. It's like you didn't distill it. All you did was purchase it and sell it again. Like you're just regifting basically. You're reselling whiskey, which I mean, it's, you do what you want to do, but I just think it's lazy. So those brands that are NDPs, I like to see them either blending or blending in their own whiskey, or, even at a minimum, like release all the freaking information if you're just gonna regift whiskey. Yeah, that is so freaking peppery. That is peppery. It's rich. It's chocolatey. Let's see what their tasting notes say. Ooh, rich, spicy layers of caramel apple. Didn't really get caramel apple. Sweet cinnamon candies. I'll agree on that. Vanilla and oak tannins. Yep. And I added like a bitter chocolatiness. It's a little bitter. I do like that though. Like for we'll call it like a dark savory type rye where it's nothing but like spice and earthiness. That fits perfect. There's not too much sweetness. There's a little redeeming like vanilla explosion about like a third way through the palate, but then it's really covered over by that like oak and whatnot. And vanilla is not really that explosive of a flavor profile either, because it's kind of more of an earthy flavor as well. Let's see here. Relating to buy IBs in Alberta only. Okay. I need to move on from this. I don't even know what time it is. Holy crap, I've been talking for 26 minutes and I've only had one whiskey. This is when my live streams used to go like an hour and a half. And I mean, I'm probably going to get back there very soon. Like the US store picks from NDPs or stores, Scotch single cask seems to be the... Yeah, store picks from NDPs are pretty solid value though. I'll give them that much. Because I wouldn't claim either of these are values. Like this rye, if you like a dark, savory, peppery rye, I think it's good. I would be willing to pay $80 for it. That being said, I'm at this point in my life where I'm so poor. I don't want to say I'm so poor, but like, things are tight. We're planning a very expensive trip here. So, I'm trying to refill the coffers, if you will. So in order to do so, I can't be buying $80 bourbons anymore. Been sticking to the good old Woodford bourbon, like just normal Woodford bourbon. I'm about a handle of it and a handle of Elijah Craig. That's what I've been drinking recently because, well, got to do what you got to do. But I think this is 100% worth a buy. I just, again, don't think I'll be buying any of these bottles. So next one is going to be, let's see here. All right, so next one, this one is an Ohio straight bourbon whiskey, aged 4 years old. Mash bill, 72% corn, 21% rye, and 7% malted barley. The barrel is watershed. The char number is 4. Yielded 217 bottles. That's an insane amount of bottles from one barrel. I bet this is a big barrel. I mean, at least here. I mean, maybe 217 is not insane, but like 184. Maybe I'm just used to the craft side where we only yield like 100 bottles because we're not using full-on 50-gallon casks yet. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying, like, that's what I'm drinking recently. That's where I've been living in. So fill day 3 2018, bottled 8 2020. So it's about what, 4.5 years old. And then ABV is going to be 61.5 proof, 123 proof. So 4-year-old, char number 4, which that's strange. You usually see a char number 3. All of these are char number 4s. Ooh, the American single malt's a char number 5. Man, everything about that American single malt just, I need to run through these two bourbons to get into that. Ooh. This is earthy, a little, not grainy, but I want to say, because grainy makes it sound like it's youthful. It's like, I'll call it dusty. There's a little bit of like an earthy dust to it. Scotch has even larger sherry and port barrels. The yield, yeah, because those are like the hogshead. Those are like the 80-gallon casks. In Canada, Alberta, the NDP hard to get bourbons are priced beyond reason. Lucky 7 14-year-old. Oh my god, 389 CAD. Doc Swinson 16-year-old cash strength 590. Sorry, I can get a Glendronach 25 for less. Yeah. No, and I think so, Peter, that's the reason I'm so into American whiskey. Is because just price points, or at least bourbon. American bourbon, we'll call it. Because I do actually prefer malt. Recently, like my mash bill wise, I've been really enjoying Southwest American style corn whiskey. So 100% corn, which is actually what the next bottle is going to be. It's a 100% corn whiskey. So I'm kind of excited to get that. It's California corn whiskey. It's called bourbon, but like it's just another corn whiskey. That being said, like I've been really into the whole like blue corn Texas-y type whiskey. One of my craft distilleries, the one I work with, just recently released a corn whiskey, and it is fan-freaking-tastic. So I've been getting into that, and then malt. American malt has been like my jam. Bourbons are kind of, they're a side piece. They're a everyday drinker type thing. But if I'm spending money on whiskey nowadays, I'm spending it on something that doesn't say bourbon in the title. Because bourbon's easy, it's cheap, it's reliable. But like, man, at this point, I'm like breaching 180 bottles. I'm not buying any more bottles unless if something's exciting or classy or has a little bit of pizzazz in it. I need something new in my life that's going to have a very different, interesting type flavor profile than another bourbon will. And also, scotch costs way too much. Or most scotches, the good stuff, the good scotch. Like at this point, I've gotten enough scotch samples to know your boy in loves. Like I can get behind. I really enjoy a lot of scotch. That being said, man, I cannot afford it. That stuff is expensive. Yeah, you see, Peter, Canadian Rockies, 21-year, 92 proof, 100% corn, paid $80. There's nothing wrong with that. Let's get into this bourbon now. Yeah, there's a little bit of a peanutty characteristic, little bit of that like traditional cherry. There is a nice bit of oak on this, though. For 4 years old, this oak's dense. And there's again a bit of almost a white chocolate on this. That like fake, very, very sugary sweet white chocolate. It's very toned down because white chocolate is a very pronounced flavor. So it's very toned down in there because it's on the back end of the palate, but it's still there. Pay the import for scotch where bourbon. Yeah, Joey. That's why I have so much bourbon. Not because I love it more. I do really appreciate American malt, though. Like, I really do think at this point that is 100% my favorite, both for quality and the actual products themselves. Those not familiar, for Canada, I mean, yeah, still. I mean, I saw triple digits and I was like, I'm out. I'm out, sugar. I can't do that. Bourbon School, nice to see you. Nice to see you. How do you not have a wrench? I give everyone a wrench. Yeah, here, let me standard mod. Oh, you can give people like super wrenches now? Sorry, it's been a while since I've done any of this. Add as mod, standard mod. And let's see, Sugar Kitty, you and Peter are going to become super mods or whatever, if I'm on the right thing. Remove as standard mod. Add as moderator, managing moderator. There we go. Heck yeah. I want... Huh. Well, I didn't know that, Bourbon School. That's on me. But yeah, regardless, I need to send you some stuff. So we'll email me. We'll get things moving on both ends. And Sugar Kitty, you are now a super mod, so you can just unmod everyone and delete things and murder people. Maybe not that, but like, you do you, boo. You have my approval. You have my blessing. Whatever the instinct de symptom de. Whatever. I'm gonna get into whiskey. I'm done messing around. I'm liking this nose. The more this is sitting in the glass and I'm just twirling it around, the more chocolatey it's getting. There's still that dusty corn in there. A little bit of that nuttiness. Ooh, there's like sweet corn. Has that like nutty graham cracker, and then vanilla caramels, oak. No chocolate on the palate. I like that. Let's see what their tasting notes are. Lively and complex with layers of dried apricots, orange blossoms, spices, and caramelized brown sugars. Well, I got the back end of that, but the dried apricots and orange blossoms, man, oh man, did not get those. Yeah, I could get some kind of citrus. To me, it's more of a lemon, though. But that also might just be the power of good old suggestion, baby. Gotta love that. Gotta love that. That's why I love reviewing whiskey with other people, because they always throw out weird, ridiculous stuff. And then I'm like, oh, that's what it is. Cheers. Whiskey Wars. Nice to see you, man. It's been a while. It's been a while, but nice to see you. In nomen Petrus Sictus Sanctum. What isn't that like the Latin thing for the whole like you have my blessing? I don't know. Like I didn't go to church as a kid. I hope no one's offended by the whole Catholic stuff or whatever. That's not my wheelhouse either. So I probably shouldn't be messing around with things that I apologize, guys. I hope you know what you're doing. There's a toe cats with the clocks. Oh man, that's getting pinned. That's my favorite message. My cat's been just like, hey Oliver, you want to come? Oh, you want to come up on here? You can jump on me if you want. You can jump if you want to. You can leave your friends behind. But if you don't jump and if you can jump. What's up, buddy? I love you. Oh. Okay, let me get back to chat. All right. Cheers. Sorry I'm late. Which two souls you sipping on? Peter, I am currently, so I just finished sipping on the Ohio Straight Bourbon Whiskey from, let's see, this is from Watershed. I liked it. I wasn't blown away by it, but it's a solid, complex cask strength bourbon. It doesn't have that depth. It's bright. There's a brightness. There's some nice brown sugars in there, but it doesn't have that depth I like to see in a bourbon typically. But also it's 4 years old, so it has a lot of depth for 4 years old. So I'm very impressed with the statistics of it, but overall I'm not really blown away by it either, if that makes sense. I did really like that rye though. The rye is probably one of the first few ryes I've ever had that are that dark and savory. And man, that just drinks so easy at 105 proof. Like 105 proof is such a great proof point. So if I had to go, so far I'm only 2 out of the 4. If I had to go with one that I prefer over the other, it's that rye. That rye was, ooh, that is good. There's some spice, there's some depth, some darkness, depth. That's good. Oliver rocks. Yeah, I love that little cat. The Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Oh, yeah. Well, thank you, Sugar Kitty. That's, again, not my wheelhouse. That's more Alex's wheelhouse. Holy whiskey. Would have that song playing as I walked into my safety meetings. Okay. I'm going to get into the last bourbon before we get into this American single malt, which I'm not going to lie, even if it is the best, but if it doesn't like blow my socks off, I'm going to be disappointed because I'm very excited about the statistics of that SOB. So next one, we are getting into Mash Bill, 100% non-GMO California corn. Oh, and this one actually won an award, silver medal for something at one of those places. But you all know me, I don't really put a lot of faith in those tasting events or whatever you want to call them. Mash Bill is 100% non-GMO corn, which does, this might be a little over everyone's head, but I'm curious, have you all seen a trend where there's a different kind of flavor profile or taste with GMO corn versus non-GMO corn? Like what's the point of all that stuff? Like is that really have an impact? Because I know 70% of the flavor typically comes from the barrel, or that's like the just generally assumed position or percentage and all that jazz. So with that being said, what's the big deal with the whole like non-GMO? Like, is it just because it's a cool trendy thing like vegan or, you know, gluten-free, things of that nature? Is that why they're putting on it? Or does that really have an impact in the flavor profile of the actual whiskey, because at the time it comes from, so I don't care where it was before it became whiskey, but when it becomes whiskey, it's all so devoid from its original ingredients, it doesn't matter. Like the main thing is to try, like the mashing process, you want to ramp that freaking sugar quality up or sugar quantity up. So when you add the yeast, you get the most alcohol possible, at least in theory. I've only ran like a distillation process once in my life, so I don't know too much about what exactly you're looking for. But I know like you want to keep the yeast live long enough to eat as much of the sugars as possible to fart out all the gas. So in theory, that makes it sound like to me you want to get the most amount. So is there really a big difference? Different corns definitely matter, but the GMO point is artificially gene spliced for all natural. It's something different than taste. That's fair. I do agree. Yeah, like green. So I've had normal corn, I've had blue corn, and I've had green corn whiskey. And I've also had that stuff as white dog before. So like there is a big flavor difference in those kinds of corns. How? I don't know. It's a bit above my pay grade, if you will, but I don't know. I'm just curious if the GMO adds anything. Okay, but it's a number 4 char, entry proof, which I think that's so cool that they put the entry proof on this one. 125, which is a very typical entry proof. Yield 184 bottles. Fill date 2017, 3/2017, bottled for 2023. So this is a 6-year-old bourbon, which is pretty solid for a craft type whiskey. Man, I need to reach out to Two Souls again to get a little bit more information, because I'm really intrigued with what they're doing now. Because I love having all this information on a bottle. I wish every bottle I bought had this stuff on it. 6 years old, 1 month, 9 days, with 126.82 proof. Yeah, that's nice. 126.8 proof, 6-year-old corn whiskey, non-GMO corn too, which is just the best kind of corn. I mean, probably. I mean, I'm very pro not adding all of that BS to our products, because I feel like there's so many things added to everything, and we're adding new things every single day, different kinds of things to everything we eat. Like when you eat a chicken breast, it's not just a chicken, it's a genetically modified chicken. So I don't know. I fully expect in 50, 60 years, we're going to see like, it's like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have done that. Oh, maybe we shouldn't have tested those drugs on US soldiers who didn't know that they were receiving, certain things like that. I don't know. There's a conspiracy theorist. There's a tinfoil hat guy inside my head. Not all the time, just occasionally. Oh my, I love this. This is like Captain Crunchwell berries. There's so much. This is fruity as heck. Oh man. You see, I'm loving corn whiskey recently. This stuff is good. Maybe I need to look more into corn whiskey. There's like this vanilla caramel fluffy characteristic, and then some nice, like, it's not Captain Crunch because it's not, I'll call it, it's not like cereal-y, it's not grainy, but just the berry part. So if you took Captain Crunchwell berries and you sifted out like the squares and you just kept the circle berries, man, it's like putting those circle berries on whipped cream. No. Man. And this does not smell like that 126 proof. Like, this is insane. I don't know. Maybe I'm taking back what I said about not having that graininess. It's not grainy, but there is definitely there's definitely that there's a little bit of like a dusty, grainy type thing, but it's not youthful graininess. It's yeah, maybe it's just Captain Crunch'll berries. Captain Crunch'll berries, a little bit of vanilla, slight nuttiness, a little bit of a almost like a caramel, like a brittle. That caramel candy, those like maybe like a peanut brittle. It's Captain Crunch and peanut brittle. Peanut brittle it's peanut brittle with Captain Crunch with berries. Is my Glen dusty? No, it's the reflection of the lights, and also like yeah, I do smear the hell out of these with my fingerprints as I constantly pick them up. And sometimes there's like we'll call them hard water spots, but that's just because so I installed in my sink one of those things you see at the bars where you just flip your drinks up and you push down and it sprays up and it cleans it. So I do that and then I hand dry them. But then there's also other days where I just clean them like that and I'm kind of intoxicated, but I, I still got to take care of my own stuff. So I'll just leave them on like a drying rack and then get water stains. Ooh, man. I've been trying all day to crack my back, and I just cracked it midstream, slightly intoxicated, not thinking about it. Life is good. Life just got so much better, man. Oh, nope, it's back. Does anyone ever get like I don't want to say cramp, but like a muscle knot or whatever in their like right next to their spine on one of their shoulder blades? I always get that and I just try to foam roll it out, but man, today it's been fighting me. Cold Stone and Cold Stone, Crunch berries and peanut brittle, Sugar Kitty, man, that smells good. Oh, and then drizzle a little bit of this in there. I'm liking this corn whiskey on the nose. I'm gonna get it on the palate. Ooh, the peanut brittle explodes on the palate. Oh my god, that is legitimately vanilla ice cream and peanut brittle. Yeah, I drizzle with caramel. That is good. So I'll be honest, I've done this a few times where people have sent me things and I've tried things that have been disappointed so far, especially with these price points, because I know every single bottle I'm trying is around the $80-$90 range, especially at this price point. I'm kind of being a little critical, but man, I haven't been disappointed in any of these. The one I'm probably the most not interested in is that 4-year-old bourbon, the second one we tried. But this is freaking amazing. A little nuttier on the palate than I would have liked, but still, like, you can't disagree with how good this tastes. Yeah, that is literally peanut brittle. I got no better tasting notes. Peanut brittle, peanut brittle, peanut brittle. Oh, that is good. It's not very fruity on the palate. It's like sweet peanut brittle, caramel, vanillas, nuttiness. Drizzle with caramels. Slap it on your butt. You know the drill. Peanut brittle crunch is the superior Captain Crunch. What? There's a peanut butter crunch Captain Crunch? Although I have a special place in my heart for, we'll call it Captain Crunch'll berries. I got sent some of that stuff when I was in Afghanistan, and that kind of blew my mind. It was a very much so needed sneaky snack, if you'll have it. So some of my family members sent me that stuff, and man, now ever since then, it's been my favorite cereal. It hit me in the moment of my need where I needed to like have something new or something different, if you will. It's 100% that peanut brittle. That's freaking good. I like that. Okay, let's look at their tasting notes. Heavy notes of toffee covered popcorn. I'll argue that's peanut brittle. Creamy vanilla roasted peanuts rounded out by lingering oak and barrel char. I mean, yeah, there's oak and barrel char in there, but I don't. So is it just me? You can get a box of only berries crunch as well sometimes. I did not know that. That being said, I do kind of like the Captain Crunch. Like I like Captain Crunch just as Captain Crunch. So I kind of like having that mix. I feel like I get bored with just one. Where was I going with this? And let me reread those tasting notes. Barrel char. Okay, yeah, that's where I was going with it. Is it just me, or have you all? So it might just be me. I am no longer. I find myself not mentioning things like barrel char or oak in whiskey anymore, just because it's so prominent in almost everything I drink. I don't really care. Like it's an assumed flavor profile. I'm finding all of these say oak, 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 but I just never mention it ever in my tasting notes. Like, am I wrong to overstep that? Like, is that a tasting note y'all would like to hear? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Joe Garcia just discovered your YouTube channel because of your love for ECBPs. Man, love those SOBs. I mean, I basically right here, I have almost a whole shelf of ECBPs. Have yet to find a single ECBP from this year though. And mine just bought ECBP C922. Hope you liked it, man. $65. Salute. That's a great freaking price for that. Cheers, man. Thanks for joining the channel and the family. Nice to see you. Let's see. And apparently we can get them here. I'm going to. Peter, let me know what you think about those just berries. I'm curious. Man, I'm going to go to the store and buy some of these after this. Well, maybe not tomorrow. I'm drinking tonight, obviously. Got to be safe, Chief. All right. I'm going to pour this last one. We're going to taste it, review it, score it, and then I'm going to share my final opinions, which should not be a surprise to y'all if you've been watching. I'm not disappointed in anything I've tried so far, and I highly doubt I'm going to be disappointed in this one. But this last one is going to be the American Single Malt Whiskey because, you know, save the best for last. This specific American Single Malt is 6 years old, spent 5 years in American New Oak, and then spent a year in what were they? Apple brandy barrels. Mash bill on this SOB: 85% malted barley, 15% smoked malted barley. Oh, so it still can be considered an American single malt. That's cool. So yeah, 85% is non-smoked, 15% is smoked, which I think is very interesting. I've only ever had ones that are 100% smoked, or ones that are, I mean, outside of scotches. So American single malts, I've either had ones that are 100% smoked or ones that aren't smoked. So I'd love to see what like a partially smoked mash bill gets you. Age 6 years, 1 month. Barrel char number 5, which is pretty aggressive. Entry proof 113.5. This yielded 193 bottles. Fill date 2017. Transfer date was 7/2022. Bottled 4/2023. Proof is 114.8. there's something about having that much information. Like, I don't really do much of anything with any of that information, but there's something absolutely fantastic about having that much information on a bottle you're about to drink. I mean, it does kind of give me preconceived notions, so hopefully I'm not wrong, but I like it. Ooh, what the heck? What's the proof on this again? 114. This has a little bit of, we'll call it spice to it. I was expecting more of a malt, but there's like a pepperiness, pepperiness. Hope I didn't peak the mic there. If I do, I apologize. Man, it's like a spicy, peppery chocolate with like peaches. It's grilled peaches. You drizzled some chocolate and some, we'll call it like cinnamon and like paprika. Not like that spicy spice. So that spicy spice. That's a double entendre or whatever that's called. Man, it's sweet. It's 100% those grilled peaches, and it has that like chocolatiness, but there's some like green funkiness to it too. Like it's almost like the grilled peach is not entirely ripe. So it's like if you've ever had a green banana and you eat it just because like it's all you have and you're like, well, it is what it is. Like it's not the best banana, but like I really needed a banana right now. It's like if you took we'll call it 80% ripe peach and you grilled it and then you drizzle it in some sort of chocolate, but then you let the chocolate dry. The chocolate's not warm, and then you spice it up with some spicy cinnamon and like paprika. That's exactly what this is. I'll be honest, I think my favorite might be that California corn whiskey. Man, I'm gonna have to pour a little bit more of that and side by side all of these to figure out what's my favorite. I'm gonna put a ranking out there. I mean, I had high expectations for this, but the nose smells funky. There's that green ripiness to it. It's almost like, this is gonna sound gross, but like eraser tips. Yeah, Sugar Kitty. Look, I'm just letting my mind run and we're just sending it. None of this is making sense to me. I just got like that like those pink erasers. So it's grilled, so it's spicy chocolate grilled peaches, but with like some untangible funk. Like I'm having a really hard time describing the funk to it and that spice, because the spice is like earthy. It's earthy, but it's not peppery spice. It's like a legitimate spice, like peppers. Man. Oh, and this is my first time breaking in this Glencairn. Maybe I need to do the little roll thing and coat the edges, because this is my brand new. Here, let's see if the autofocus tracks on this. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, my everyday drinker, Glencairn. He sent me one when, yeah, we sent each other Glencairn. So I love this Glencairn, coolest branding ever. Man, that is good. Oh, and I don't know if I mentioned this, but it's age 6 years old. What's up, buddy? You want to come? Are you? Oh, you put your tail in the picture. You want to come up here? Oh, I'm sorry. I guess Oliver doesn't want to interact with y'all. He said, F those guys. I ain't want nothing to do with them. What? If you want attention, you know how to get attention. pick a side, dude. Like, if you want it, you gotta make it happen. Cats, what are you gonna do? Just for a second, though. I mean, he's been sitting right there on the ground. He's getting ballsy. So when he first moved here, so we have two dogs and one cat. So we have Oliver, and then we have a Australian cattle dog and that Great Pyrenees. You'll see the Great Pyrenees from time to time because he's far more nosy than the Australian cattle dog is. But he when we originally moved, he would just like stay on his like perch in the guest bedroom. He would not move. Like, I used to call him the man in the high castle or whatever that Amazon movie is, just because that's all he would do. He would sit on that perch and do nothing. And then now he's starting to come out and like do things. Like, he's actually currently rubbing his face all over a bunch of bottles of whiskey that I'm about to film Friday's video on after this live stream. I don't know if I'm doing that today. That might be a tomorrow problem at this point. But either which way, like, he's getting ballsy and he's no longer scared to intermingle with the dog. So I'm proud of him. He's killing it. But he's been a little needy today. Oliver, if you really want, you can come up here. People want to see you, probably. Meow, bitch. Meow. Cats, what are you gonna do? Can't live with him, can't live without him. I had a Queensland healer love me some cattle dogs. Yeah, so Rio is an Australian cattle dog who we call her Crickety nowadays. Like, I think she's only like 8 years old, but she's acting like she's on her deathbed. She walks around slowly, unless she has something to chase, but she walks around like she's rickety and crickety. She's like Rickety, what is it? Rickety Cricket from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Yeah, this is that grilled peaches, man. Peaches. Grilled peaches for me. There's a green flavor in there, which I know is so horrible, but to me, I taste this and I'm like, oh, there's something that's like green, almost like unripe, unfinished, almost unfiltered in there. It's not perfect. It's good though. It's that chocolate spicy peach. Good flavors. I almost wonder, like, maybe is it soapy? Is that what the greenness is? I kind of wonder, would this have been better had they not finished it? I don't know. I would need to see. Oh, that's smoky. Man, things just clicked in my head. That greenness is that smoky undertone. So, oh man. It's not. Okay, hear me out. North of Suburban, cheers. Nice to see you. I just had an epiphany, buddy. Going to the country, going to eat a lot of peaches. Gonna have ourselves time. I don't know why the South Park theme song just jumped into my head. Have longer. Okay. So, hear me out on this one. I actually, now that I realize that I don't know why it took me, because I read the freaking mash bill, partially smoked. Maybe that's where that funky flavor is. So hear me out. This also could be me interpreting what I'm supposed to be tasting, is that like green funkiness is smokiness. But it's like you took, it's not applewood. It's not hickory. It's mesquite. It's not mesquite, it's not applewood. So those are the only two woods I've smoked with outside of hickory. But it's like if you hickory smoked peaches and then you drizzled chocolate on them and then added some spice. It's sweet. So whatever the smoke is, it's like a sweet smokiness. It almost tastes like unripe fruit to me. Or it did taste like that to me until I put together like, oh hey, that's kind of smokiness. The mash bill has some smokiness in it. That's tracking. Whiskey without some funk would be vodka. That's fair. Well, have you had a lot of White Dog? Because man, White Dog can get weird. Oh, also, hang in. If you want to come to Adventurous Stills, I will literally be there Saturday. So I'm making the transition to working with them more often. And so I'll be working some shifts, doing some tours, doing some bartending, things of that nature. So you are more than welcome to come in and I'll give you like a white gloves treatment type thing. I'll let you try everything. Where do they make the two spirits? Hang on, are you referencing the two soul spirits? Like where they make all this stuff? Because all this stuff is sourced from all around the country. So we got some New York whiskey from Finger Lakes Distillery. We have some whiskeys from Watershed. So this malts from Watershed and the bourbon was from Watershed. And then the California corn whiskey, which they labeled in. But I like to make a distinction. I feel like corn whiskey is like bourbon, but also like a little different than bourbon, because as long as you add corn whiskey to a brand new charred American oak barrel, it could be called bourbon. So obviously that's what they did in this case, but I like to make a distinction because I feel like it's more descriptive of the category, because when you start adding different grains to it, it starts changing things up. So I love comparing 100% corn whiskeys to other 100% corn whiskeys. But yeah, it's from Sutherland Distillery in California. Man, I'm gonna have to do a solid one for one, taste to taste type thing. I like that single malt because it's funky. That's the best way to put it. It is weird as shit. That would be a bottle I would love to have on my shelf to give, because it's a good pour. I like it, but on top of it, it's very different than all the other American single malts I have. It's funky. There's a weird funkiness about it, and I think that's that partial smoke that is really just making it weird as heck. So I like that. I would love to have that on my shelf to kind of compare and show what differences do and be like, hey, I know you like this American single malt, which arguably that's not really a huge thing that a lot of American single malt lovers are like, oh, hey, I'm super into American single malt. That's not a normal thing, but that's a very interesting American single malt. And then I'm really huge fan of this corn whiskey and this rye. This Ohio Straight Bourbon, I don't say it's lackluster, but comparatively, I think it shoots the lowest of the bunch that they sent me. I'm gonna have to, I'm gonna A/B some of these. So let's see. I mean, it's hard to compare different categories to each other, but yeah, that malt on the nose just has so much more going on than this. So these are technically in the same category. So a 6-year-old California straight bourbon whiskey, and then a 4-year-old Ohio bourbon. Let's see which one's better. Let's see if I can double fist this twirl. God, I look like a freaking idiot. Yeah, I could check it out on Saturday, and Bad Bob is coming too. You mean, so wait, hang on, Bad Axe is coming? Because if Bad Axe is coming, and he's coming on a weekend, and he's going to be here like on like a Sunday, I might be able to reach out to the so I don't know if I have that. I feel we should call or something after the. I'll call Bobby. I'll figure out what's going on, because I would love to do like kind of like an interim get together, maybe on like a Sunday at the distillery, because we're not open on Sundays. So I feel like I might be able to clear things up and be like, hey, I'll call Bobby. Good ideas. Man, that smells good. This smells better though. There's more of like a fruity characteristic, more of tropical flavor, but there's still that dense like dark brown sugar note in here. Like is very comparative to this. This has more of a, we'll call it like a rubber stamp flavor, like that pencil eraser flavor. Rikiki. Yeah, I'll have to text him, because I definitely want to do some shit with him. I mean, my setup's not really meant to do anything with anyone, because I've very much so cued it into just doing things with me. But man, I love Bobby. He's fantastic. That California corn whiskey is absolutely fan freaking tastic. That is absolutely amazing. That peanut brittle on the flavor profile is amazing. Actually, I might like that more than the American single malt, if we're being honest. They're so different. One's like peanut brittly, and one has this like funky, dusty, smoked peach. I think I'm going California. So I think my favorite is that corn whiskey, followed very closely by the American single malt, followed by the rye whiskey, followed by the Ohio bourbon. I think that's my route. That being said, I'm not disappointed in any of these. Also, those bourbon guys, cheers. Nice to see you guys. Double fist, and yeah, drinking all of the whiskeys. So I'm a huge fan of the California straight bourbon whiskey. The American single malt was really good, and the New York straight rye. The Ohio straight bourbon, I was kind of iffy about. It wasn't really my go-to. It's just a 4-year-old bourbon. There's nothing super fantastic about it, but that 100% corn bourbon from California, man, that is knock your socks off. Knock your socks off. Fantastic. Peanut brittle. Like if you are a fan of bean products and you like nuttiness, that is so good, because this is a very intense, like sweet nuttiness. Because man, it is peanutty, spicy, and sweet. That is, I don't want to call it balanced, because it's definitely not balanced. It's very much so nutty and sweet. But maybe copacetic is the right way to put it. Ryan. Peter White. How dare you confuse me with AJ? For shame. Yeah, Ryan, let's be honest. So having worked in that section before where it's like you're the one who manages the channel and whatnot, and the other guy just kind of like shows up or grabs whiskey or whatever the hell, like you own that channel. I feel like AJ very much so just shows up and exists. Every time I see those bourbon guys saying anything, I'm like, oh, hey, hi, Ryan. Like, I know I'm talking to you because I feel like AJ, I don't know. He just doesn't have the same level of, we'll call it commitment as you do. Because Ryan, you're a badass. Let's see here. How dare you? Yeah, although if anyone was going to make that joke, it was probably going to be AJ. Yeah, those bourbon guys, we really gotta do. Oh, he edits the videos. I mean, that's fair. I do everything, so I mean, and at this point, Alec never even freaking shows up, so it doesn't matter. But that's fair if he edits things. Wait, so I mean, this is an off-topic conversation. Those bourbon guys, we need to do something together soon. I was excited to go whiskey hunting in Augusta, but you know, you let me down. You let me down. But I honestly understand it. It's hard as hell to put anything aside. Now that I'm back home and I don't have nothing but freedom at my hands to F off and do nothing, it's so hard to manage everything. You know, the family, the YouTube channel, the different jobs I'm doing. It's ridiculously difficult. So I 100% get it. You just caught me in a time where I'm like, well, I got nothing else to do because I was told by the military to show up in Augusta, Georgia, and I spent the last 3 weeks here doing not a single freaking thing. Not a single thing. No, again, I totally get it. She probably sees. I feel like the director, honestly, if anyone on those bourbon guys, here, let's do a little review of those bourbon guys. If anyone is putting in the hard workload and the heavy work, it's 100% the director. Because she not only has to deal with her husband on that channel, which correct me if I'm wrong with any of those bourbon guys, Ryan. But from my perspective, she not only has to put up with her husband, which is Ryan, but also has to deal with her brother, which is AJ. And I feel like my sister, so I imagine my sister putting up with, if I was at that same level of close to my soon to be brother in law, like my sister would be, she'd be in a world of hurt because she's losing every conversation 100% of the time, even if she's right. Like, it doesn't freaking matter. It's just because she spoke up means that she is wrong. And that's a lot to put up with, especially for a live stream. Like, I would love to have a director, but I don't know a single person who would be off camera letting me throw shots at them all night. Because I would be throwing shots literally and figuratively. No, hang in. Literally, I think my two favorite, so my favorite live stream I've ever done, those bourbon guys and Storytime Whiskey. So when I did a live stream with those bourbon guys and Shane from Storytime, my favorite, one of two videos I have that are non-monetizable, but an absolute blast, and I freaking loved it. Yeah, that's also fair. But also, if there was someone who's gonna get beat with Jesus sandals, it's 100% AJ. He makes it easy. He makes it easy. Alrighty. Let's see. How long have I been doing this for? I feel like I've been doing this for way over an hour at this point. Yeah. So I'll leave it at this. So let me do my closing statement and all before I keep on getting sidetracked. Those bourbon guys, we need to do something here in the near future. Regarding today's flight, that California Straight Bourbon Whiskey, that American Single Malt were both absolutely fantastical. The rye, pretty freaking solid. Very interesting, savory rye. You don't see that very often, but not necessarily my go-to in a rye whiskey because I really like those herbal side of rye. And then that bourbon whiskey from Ohio, which is very for $80, it was very down the middle. Had someone told me that it was like $60, $50, I've been like, damn, that's a pretty good freaking bourbon. But you gotta go with what you gotta pay in this world because prices are changing so much nowadays and things are ridiculously crazy out there. So, you just gotta go with your gut. And that I was a little for the price that they're charging for their stuff, that was the only one where it's like, that's okay. It's okay. So, Two Souls Spirits, I actually really like what they're doing. I love we'll call it the upfrontness or the transparency that they're using with their spirits. I really appreciate that. Them being an NDP, they're definitely going out of their way to show what they're actually putting forward and what they actually have out there. So I appreciate that they're being super transparent, probably the most transparent I've ever seen a company be at this moment with a single bottle because they're doing things of barrel date, entry proofs, things of that nature. You don't see that every single day. So I appreciate that. Really like they're out of their four current offerings, their California Straight Bourbon Whiskey and their American Single Malt. I really enjoyed those. Two very different offerings, especially very different offerings compared to what you see out on there on the current market. So really appreciate them sending this whiskey. If you've been interested in anything I've said here today, because again, they're not paying me for any sort of review. They just sent me whiskey and I'm talking about their stuff. There's no like quid pro quo or whatever. I'm just sharing my opinions. But if you're interested in anything, link to their website is down below. Again, most of their stuff is around 80 or 90. I'd pay that much for their California Straight Bourbon Whiskey and that American Single Malt, but that's about where I draw the line. Your money's your money. I'm not going to tell you what to do with it. Man, why am I having a hard time breathing? Oh, I feel like I missed a lot. So Two Souls is a blender. Yeah, they are, technically a blender. They're not a blender because these are all single barrels I tried because they have this much information that can only be single barrels. They are, what do you call it? They call themselves an independent bottler, but they're technically, legally speaking, in the United States, they're categorized in a non-distilling producer. So they're producing whiskey, but they're not distilling it. So they go around the United States, they purchase up lesser known brands, whiskeys, whiskey lung, yeah, sure, whatever you want to call it. So they purchase up lesser known brands, whiskeys, single barrels, and they rebottle them under their Two Souls label. They're honestly a smaller NDP than a lot of the NDPs out there. Again, the only one who has the same philosophy that they have that I'm aware of is a Lost Lantern, and I would be interested to see how they put together or how they compare to the Lost Lantern because I really appreciated the forwardness of all of the information they gave me regarding their stuff. So I appreciate their stuff and I would love to see what they're going to be doing in the future. And honestly, I might be buying 2 of their bottles. I don't know. I'm in this weird factor where I'm trying to save money, but like, damn, those 2 were absolutely great. So who knows what kind of mood I'm going to be in. Right now, I'm fighting the urge or the FOMO to purchase those bottles. They're just really good. Curator. Hanging, yeah, I would say they're more like a online single barrel curator. So kind of like a lot of those whiskey channels out there, like a lot of the bigger named brands, as well as like a lot of your local liquor stores, how they release single barrels, they are doing that, but on a larger scale, in theory. But yeah, um, please do me a favor, check out Two Souls Spirits. I think they're absolutely fantastic. If you're interested in anything we talked about today, please go down there, check out their link below. I appreciate you guys. Jesus Christ, man, do I not know how to speak? I don't know how to speak with my mouth anymore. I appreciate y'all coming in and hanging out tonight. I'm coming back from a little while off, so I'm kind of shaking the cobwebs, getting back used to live streaming. Still trying to work out how I'm going to do that. I'm probably not going to do it this early all the time, but still working that out. But yeah, again, appreciate y'all coming in, hanging out. Appreciate all the support. That is a wrap on today's live stream. Cheers, y'all. We will see y'all later. Cheers.